Dear students, in today's session, we continue our exploration of personality theories by moving beyond the early psychoanalytic and humanistic perspective. We now turn our attention to additional influential framework that deepen our understanding of personality structure, development, learning, and cognition. We will begin with Gordon Allport trait approach, which emphasizes behavioral consistency and individual uniqueness. From there, we will examine Erikson lifespan psychosocial development model. We will then explore Henry Murray need theory, followed by the behaviorist perspective of B.F. Skinner, the social learning approach of Albert Bandura, and finally George Kelly cognitive theory of personal construct. Together, this perspective broadens our understanding of how personality is shaped by traits, social experience, needs, environmental reinforcement, and observational learning and cognitive interpretation. At the end of this session, students will be able to understand major psychoanalytic personality theories, explain Allport trait theory and functional autonomy, describe Erikson's eight psychosocial stages of development, analyze Murray need theory and the role of environmental pressure, explain Skinner operant conditioning principles, and discuss Bandura social learning and Kelly cognitive construct theory. Now, let's shift our focus to Gordon Allport, who developed the trait theory. Allport was more interested in the uniqueness of the individual than in general laws of behavior. He defined personality as a dynamic organization within the person that determines their characteristics, behavior, and thought. To study this, he used the trait as his primary unit of analysis. A trait is essentially a consistent way of behaving. For example, if you are generally friendly at school, at home, and at a party, friendliness is a trait that accounts for your behavioral consistency across different situations. Allport classified traits into three levels based on how much they influence a person's life. Cardinal traits are so powerful that they define a person. Think of someone who is so dedicated to peace that it influences everything they do. Most of us, however, are governed by the central traits, which are the 5 to 10 characteristics that would best describe us to a stranger, like being honest or hardworking. Finally, secondary traits are more specific and less consistent, like a preference for a certain types of food. Alport also distinguishes between common traits that many people share in a culture and individual traits that are unique to one person. Two of Alport's most unique concepts are the proprium and functional autonomy. The proprium is his term for the self. It is the part of us that provides a sense of unity and direction in life. Functional autonomy is a controversial but fascinating idea. It suggests that while a behavior is might have started in childhood for one reason, as an adult we might continue it for an entirely different independent reason. For example, a child might start playing the piano to please their parent, but as an adult they play because they genuinely love music. Their current motives is functionally autonomous from its origin. While Freud focused on childhood, Erik Erikson believed that personality development continues throughout our entire lives. He developed the psychosocial theory, which focuses on how the ego interacts with social and historical forces. Erikson proposed the epigenetic principles, which means that our development follows a specific universal sequence of stages. Each stage is an optimal time for certain qualities to emerge depending on our biological growth and our social environment. Erikson identified 8 stages of life, each marked by a crisis or a turning point. For infants, the crisis is trust versus mistrust. As we grow into adolescence, the major challenge is identity versus role confusion, figuring out who we are. In middle age, we face generativity versus stagnation, where we ask if we are contributing something meaningful to the world. Each stage is like a fork in the road. How we resolve these conflicts determine the strength and health of our personality. Erickson's theory is deeply rooted in the idea that our environment and society shape us. While his work has not generated as much lab research as some others, his concept of the identity crisis has become a staple of modern psychology. It helps us to understand everything from why teenagers argue with their parents to how adults choose their careers or handle relationships. Personality for Erikson is a lifelong journey of meeting social challenges. Let us quickly take a recap. Alpert taught us about the consistency of traits and the independence of adult motives, while Erikson showed us that personality is a series of psychosocial challenges that span from birth to old age. Henry Murray offered a unique perspective by linking personality directly to the brain. He argued that without a brain, there would be no personality. In his view, personality is the agent that keeps our behavior stable over time. His central concept is the need. He saw a need as a physical force in the brain that organizes how we see the world and how we act. Murray classified needs in several ways, such as viscerogenic, uh, which is physical needs like air, versus psychogenic, which is psychological needs like achievement. Murray did not just look at internal needs, he also looked at the external influences, which he called praise. When a person's internal needs meets an external praise, it creates a theme. For example, if you have a high need of achievement and you are in a very competitive job, the praise. Your behavior will be defined by that specific theme. To measure these hidden needs, Murray co-developed the Thematic Appreciation Test or TAT. In this test, people look at ambiguous pictures and tell a story about them. The idea is that their stories will reveal their underlying needs and themes. Next, we move to a very different approach, B.F. Skinner's behaviorism. Skinner famously rejected the idea that there is an inner man or an autonomous self driving our actions. Instead, he argued that behavior is completely determined by the environment. If we know the environmental conditions, we can predict and control behavior. Skinner didn't care about unconscious motives or internal traits. He focused on what could be observed and measured. He believed that the basic laws of learning are the same for all living things, which is why he spent so much time studying rats and pigeons to understand humans. The core of Skinner's work is operant conditioning. This is the idea that behavior is shaped by its consequences. If a behavior is followed by a reward or reinforcement, it is more likely to happen again. Skinner showed how we can use shaping, rewarding a small step toward a goal, to teach complex behavior. He also explored how we learn to generalize behaviors to similar situations or discriminate between different stimuli. To Skinner, personality is really just a collection of learned behavior patterns that have been reinforced by our environment. Skinner's theories is strictly objective. He didn't believe in freedom or internal rationality. While his ideas are controversial, especially his suggestions in the book Beyond Freedom and Dignity that we should design entire cultures using reinforcement, his scientific impact is undeniable. Behaviorism is generated more experimental research than any other personality theory, and its principles are used today in everything from education to clinical therapy. Albert Bandura built on behaviorism but added a crucial element, the mind. His social learning theory suggests that we are not just pawns of the environment, but we are not completely free either. Instead, there is a reciprocal interaction between our behavior, our thoughts, and our environment. Bandura's most famous concept is modeling, or learning by watching others. He argued that we learn not just by doing, but by observing the consequences of other people's action. This requires four things. You must pay attention, you must retain what you saw, you must be able to reproduce the action, and you must be motivated to do it. Bandura also introduced vicarious reinforcement. We are more likely to do something if we see someone else get rewarded for it. More importantly, he discussed self-regulation. This is how we control our own behavior through self-observation and judgment. We set standards for ourselves and feel good when we meet them. This is self-reinforcement. In Bandura's view, our self-concept and our ability to monitor ourselves are the keys to healthy functioning personality. Finally, we come to George Kelly, who viewed humans as scientists. His cognitive theory is based on constructive alternativism, which means that there is no objective reality, only our interpretation of it. Just like a scientist, you are constantly creating hypotheses about the world and testing them. Kelly called the patterns we used to make sense of the world constructs. Your personality is essentially your unique system of constructs. If your constructs help you predict the future accurately, you keep them, and if they don't, you change them. Kelly's theory is very formal, built on one fundamental postulate and 11 corollaries. The core idea is that our psychological processes are directed by how we anticipate events. We use different types of construct to navigate life. Some are core construct which are central to who we are, while others are peripheral. Some are permeable, meaning they can handle new information, while others are impermeable and fixed. How flexible or tight your construct system is defines how you interact with society and handle stress. Dear student, this is all about our lecture Theory of Personality. Let us now briefly consolidate the major ideas from this section. We begin with Gordon Allport's classification of traits, cardinal, central, and secondary trait, and his important concept of the proprium and functional autonomy, which emphasizes the adult motives can become independent of childhood origins. We then moved to Erik Erikson's psychosocial theories, which expanded personality development across the entire lifespan. His 8 stages, marked by psychosocial crises such as identity versus role confusion, illustrate how personality evolve through social interaction and developmental challenges. Henry Murray introduced a need-based framework emphasizing internal needs and external processes. His development of the thematic appreciation test provided a method for uncovering hidden motivational themes. We then examined B.F. Skinner behaviorism, which rejected internal mental explanation and focused on environmental reinforcement. Operant conditioning demonstrated how consequences shape behavior patterns. Albert Bandura extended behaviorism by incorporating cognition through social learning theory. His concepts of modeling, reciprocal determinism, and self-regulation illustrate the interaction between environment, behavior, and thought. Finally, George Kelly cognitive theory described individuals as scientists who construct their own reality through personal constructs. Personality, in his view, is defined by how we anticipate and interpret events. Together, these theories highlights that personality can be understood through traits, developmental stages, motivational needs, environmental conditioning, social learning, and cognitive interpretation. Each approach contributes a unique dimensions to understanding human individuality. This concludes our discussion on the theories of personality. I hope this session has helped you to gain a clear understanding of the foundation of personality theories and their relevance in understanding human behavior. Once again, thank you for your time and attention.